Alright guys, so back with the 2011 Chevy Cruze 1.8 liter. Transmission is definitely gonna get swapped out. So for the most part, everything that's attached to the engine, I just need to work on that fuel line, which I was having quite the time with. Needs to be disconnected, but other than that, AC is off, motor mount bracket's off. All the harness, I didn't unplug anything. You know, I pretty much left everything plugged up. I just removed it off of the battery bracket. I came into, you know, the fuse box here, and what these bolts are, they're the holder for this right here. So that inside bolt on the left actually pulls this up into it. So when you do like your LS swaps or whatever, you pretty much have, you know, your let's call it your A port. So let's say this is A, B, C. I just took off my A port, and then also down here there's a couple of you know, connections. They remove pretty easy. I broke mine's off just because I couldn't really lift up to gain access to this black one. I was trying, you know, not to break anything, and then as I started lifting, it eventually broke. It's all plastic, nothing to do with the pins or anything. You don't want to bend those. You don't want to break any of the pins in here. Nothing like that. You don't want to damage none of that stuff, because that's very important. I took off the transmission plug as well. I disconnected the lines from the radiator themselves. So here's one. It has those butt clips or wedge clips that just sleeve over. So you'll need a pick to punch those out, and they fling. So I'm gonna look for one. I have a packet of them because when I'm doing my LS swaps, it's very common to disconnect all these. So radiator hoses all off. Like I said, everything, emissions lines. I had to have one up here for the evap, one back here for the manifold. So that's that one right here. I put a little bit of lube. Use the little spout or the little hose that come with them, so you could spray onto that clip. That way you just pinch it with both fingers and it just slides right out. I took off my shift cable, so that was probably the most easiest thing to remove. And then radiator hoses, heater hoses. There's two of them. So we got 1 and 2, and that's what these ones are. 1 and then 2 over here somewhere where I put it. I tucked them all in there. I got my kit Alonso working on the front fascia because the bumper's got to get repaired just a little bit. We got to get to it anyways because I'm going to replace these headlights for some new ones. That's just that's going to be him working on that. But for the most part, I was just making sure everything is detaching. It's coming off of the fuse box. That way I'm not unclipping and pushing down on these clips that remind me a lot of the Volkswagen, the Mercedes style clips. So don't want to break none of those. So I just went on ahead, left it on there, and just unhooked the harness itself from the fuse block main. I decided to go this route. If you guys just want to start unclipping everything, your fuel injectors and whatnot, I just don't want to deal with that hassle. I just want to leave everything connected. I'll grab my hoist, pick it up, detach the transmission, and go from there, and then just hook up my harnesses again. But that's the transmission. We got that one right here. It's I think it's a 4T60. I think that's what they're known as. I don't know much about them. Everything was working great with this one. Next thing will be taking out the engine, and we'll go from there, guys. Sorry for the big old jump cut here, but we did end up taking out the engine. It's right here with transmission included. Again, didn't have to remove that lower frame. I just had to bring down the car substantially. Pretty much maintained it with my jack, but high enough to clear my legs, you know, so I could clear out this fender headlight. The whole front part was nice, clean and clear. I didn't have issues at all or getting caught up with the AC lines, just in the back with that rear transmission mount and this rear front mortar mount. That was the pain. And then that little chingadera right there, don't know what it's for. I swear I felt like cutting it off because it was just catching on the transmission. So I had to put a mean incline when I was taking it out. Now what I'm just working is piecing off everything that I need factory wise: brackets, mounting it onto here, you know, transmission lines, which I am going to end up purchasing and upgrading. I'll double check it. If anything needs to be replaced, I obviously recommend replace it since you're already there. You're not having to deal with, you know, a crammed up hood or engine compartment. You're here, it's nice in the open, just replace it, O-rings, whatnot. I'm gonna go through all that. I'm gonna separate the transmission from the engine. I'll lift up the engine, and then I'll start working on the whole oil pan, cleaning off everything, making sure that it's nice and neat, secured, valve cover, all that fun stuff. Everything should be just like ready to go, just so I can mate that new transmission onto this engine. Alright guys, so here we have the engine and transmission out of the 2011 Chevy Cruze, 1.8 liter. This is a non-turbo. We're going to replace the transmission as stated. This one seems to be locked up. I thought the engine was seized. That is not the case. The moment I disconnected it from the torque converter, I'm able to shift it from reverse, neutral, drive, you know, just kind of having my kid Alonso shift through those parameters. And me trying to just spin it back and forth from 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock on the crank, I was able to just start, you know, breaking the transmission loose. But I'm going to go ahead and zip these off. They should be 10mm bolts. That's what it looks like. I'm just holding it. I'm applying a little bit of pressure here. So the reason why I'm taking this off, guys, is because off of that other one that I purchased, this cover is cracked. Alright, now lower it. Alright, there we go. I'm trying to lower it on the crank versus the oil pump. Crank's much stronger than the oil pump. I'm going to remove some bolts back here. This one down there, a couple of them right here. I'm going to use the impact whenever I can. But other than that, I'll be right back. Okay, so we got the transmission off. I'm going to go ahead and lift up the engine, make sure everything's okay over there. And then we're going to go ahead and then mount this over there. So before I do that, I just got to do a couple of checks and I'll be right with you guys. I think that's neutral. I think that's drive. I could literally spin it with one hand. I think that's park. It should be park. This one's in park now, and I can't even spin it. This thing is, it's seized. Like that's nothing. My baby can come over here and spin this sucker. This sucker I cannot even spin. I can put it in the next gear. Nowhere. So this one's definitely locked up. Either it's a torque converter that locked up something, but it doesn't even
come off and all the screws are off.
It doesn't even let me pop it off. This sucker can slide. Yeah, That sucker can slide off. This thing goes only one way in here, but it's sitting. You spin it, and then it falls in there. There we go. There you go. You see how I just did that? It just popped right into place. That's what you want to hear. You want to hear it go thunk. And I mean, it seems like it needs to go flush with some of these areas. So this sucker is in there, full turn. That's beautiful. That's what you want to see. You don't want to see this. Yeah. All right, let's get this installed. Go ahead, stop the camera. Sorry about that, guys. I'm running out of space. I have so much stuff recorded. I have other trucks here on my YouTube channel, other cars here on my YouTube channel. Just I have everything backed up on this memory card, and I need to edit. I need to start editing videos. I need to start loading them up. So bear with me, guys, but let's get this sucker installed. Just really quick reminder. These are the torque converter bolts. I just put them back on here. I pretty much took them off of this one, put them onto this one just to check. And then obviously before you mount it onto your flywheel, torque converter bolts will shoot from the block towards the transmission. That way you can hold on to your torque converter. But definitely remove these, move them out of the way. I'm gonna go ahead and start installing this. So we'll be right back. Put your starter in because it's a pain once it's in the car. You just wanna make sure everything's on there. I'm gonna probably put my valve cover on here in just a minute. I want to make sure everything is just hooked up correctly. I'm going to go through my specs. Don't forget to hook up your torque converter. It's three bolts. You got your shot through right here. So before you do your starter, you do your torque converter bolts. So you should be good. If you already did your transmission and your oil pan's off, you can do your torque converter bolts through there before you put your oil pan on. That's another way to do it. But yeah, it spins freely now. It's, you know, knock on wood, nothing bad happens when we start it up. But yeah, before I couldn't spin it, I thought the engine was seized. Now it spins without, you know, any effort at all. We're moving in a good direction here. I'm glad I took this route. So stick around and hopefully we'll get it in. I gotta hook up all the wires, and yeah, we'll leave it for another day. I'll keep working on it here. And hopefully next time you guys will be able to see this engine inside of that Chevy Cruze. All right, you guys have a good night. Peace.